There are some people who love clowns, and honestly, Marlene Warren is one of those people. It's now the year 1990, and Marlene is 40 years old. Now, there's one other thing that you need to know about Marlene besides her love of clowns, and that's that she has a history of being unlucky in love. She was no longer with Joe's, her son's, biological father, and things are getting tense with her current husband, Mike. During a conversation with her mother, she told her, "If anything happens to me, Mike did it." On May 26th, Marlene probably isn't thinking about cheating or murder. Instead, she's focused on enjoying her time with her family and friends. They glance out the window and they see someone approaching the house. This person outside is dressed as a clown and is holding a bouquet of flowers in one hand and a bunch of balloons in the other. So she gets up to answer the door before the clown has even had a chance to knock or ring the bell. So as she's pulling the door open, Marlene says, "Oh, how sweet." The moment she has the door open, the clown draws a gun and shoots Marlene in the face point blank. This clown is fairly tall, about 6 feet. Joe grabs a phone and calls 911, telling the dispatcher that his mother needs an ambulance. He just watched her get shot in the face. But in Joe's mind, they are not getting there fast enough. So he tells his friends to stay with his mom while they wait for the paramedics. And then he grabs her car keys, trudges towards her car as fast as he can with a broken leg. His plan is to try and chase after the clown and somehow stop them from escaping. But unfortunately, he's already too late. The clown and their car are long gone, and Joe has no idea where they went. Paramedics rush her to the hospital and put her on life support. Now, at this point, she is still alive, but the situation is looking dire. They're pretty convinced that Marlene is never going to wake up. So Marlene's family decides to pull the plug. The police obviously dive into the case, and they find their first major clue pretty quickly. They locate a white Chevy LeBaron in a parking lot about 10 miles away from Marlene's house. And when they search the car, they find bright orange synthetic hairs inside it. They find human hairs inside the LeBaron. The point is, the detectives need to learn more. So they begin questioning Marlene's loved ones, and they soon learn that everyone thinks they already know who the murderer is. All of Marlene's friends and relatives tell the investigators about her own suspicions regarding her husband, Mike, in the time before her death. But someone else thinks Mike was planning to kill Marlene, his lawyer. See, about a year before the homicide, Mike and Marlene hired an attorney to help them deal with an unrelated legal matter. But Marlene had to step away for a bit. And the moment Mike was alone with their lawyer, he asked if it would be possible for a husband to inherit his wife's property after he'd murdered her. He tells the police to look at Mike's finances to see if he might have had a motive. Now, sure enough, there's a lot of evidence to support the lawyer's suspicions. This is enough for the police to pull him in for questioning, but he denies all of the accusations. Mike had a pretty strong alibi. He was in a car with several friends, all of whom are like, yeah, he was definitely in the car with us. He begins dating a woman named Sheila Keene. Now, Mike and Sheila have known each other for years. The two of them end up getting married in 2002, and then they move away from Florida to Tennessee. So at this point in this case, 12 long years have passed since Marlene's murder. Now, meanwhile, the police aren't any closer to solving this now cold case. In fact, another decade and a half goes by before investigators make another break. By the year 2017, Marlene's homicide has been reassigned to a cold case unit at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. And we've seen this happen so many times before. The cold case unit thinks they finally have the tools to even test the hairs that were recovered from the LeBaron back in 1990. There's another suspect coming onto their radar now. There were a lot of strange rumors going around about Mike's new wife, and then it gets weirder. They opened a business together, and each year they would throw a big Halloween party at this restaurant, and one year Sheila attended this company party while dressed as a clown. And once the police have Sheila on their radar, they start finding other evidence against her. Now, remember how I said the clown had balloons and flowers in their hands when they were approaching Marlene's house? Well, the balloons were still there by the time the crime scene investigators arrived. There was only one store in the entire region that sold this style of balloons. And that store was only half a mile away from Sheila's apartment. It was basically in her backyard. Sheila had dark brown hair and brown eyes. and she stands at 5'7", which matches the description the worker at the costume shop gave. And when they compare her hair with the strands from her car, they get a perfect match. The officers actually arrest Sheila for a 1990 murder. Sheila says she can explain all of this away. First, she insists there could be a perfectly innocent explanation for how her hair ended up in the clown's getaway car. After all, when Sheila worked at the used car lot, one of her responsibilities was repossession. She also says she doesn't trust these DNA tests. It had been 25 years since the murder, and since the hair was found in the Chevy, that's a long time for evidence to sit in police storage. But the state still says that even if you ignore the DNA, the circumstantial evidence against Sheila is still strong. Sheila and her lawyer are both clear. Okay, when all of this is going down, they each say that she is innocent. But by April 25th, she gets an apparent lifeline when the prosecutors actually offer her a plea deal that if Sheila pleads guilty to second-degree murder of Marlene, her sentence will only be 12 years. Marlene accepts the deal, and just a year and a half later, in November of 2024, she's released early for good behavior. Sheila still maintains to this day that she's innocent and she served time in prison wrongfully. She's only accepted the deal because it was the quickest way for her to get out of prison. And some people actually believe what Sheila says. They think an innocent woman lost 7 years of her life for a crime she didn't commit. In spite of all of that, Mike had never been charged. He publicly maintains that he's innocent and that so is Sheila. Instead, Mike claims the killer must have been an angry customer or tenant from one of their businesses. We will never know if the police ignored other credible suspects or if Sheila took the fall for Mike. Perhaps they even plotted this crime together, or maybe she alone is guilty. She just wanted to get rid of the wife and got a slap on the wrist. Marlene never got justice either. The killer either never got caught or served an extremely short sentence while maintaining their innocence. I also just have to believe, like with all the evidence in this case, Mike didn't act alone. It makes most sense for him to have involved Sheila and convince her to do this so they could run away and live their life, and then tack on the fact that Sheila absolutely hates Marlene because Marlene is married to a man that she wants to be with. That motive does not seem that far out. We see this all the time. Love triangles end in murder all the time. What I think is strange is that this murder hasn't unfolded, that there hasn't been a confession, that it's still so confusing because that is unusual in love triangle murder. Usually we get a pretty clear answer of what happened. So let me know your thoughts on this either over on Instagram or in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts about this case and what you think. And just remember that Marlene was shot in front of her own child. So please, please, please keep her surviving friends and family in your thoughts today. All right, you guys, thank you for listening to today's true crime case, and I will see you next time as we go further into the dark together. Goodbye.